Hello and welcome to one and all. So in today's class, I'm continuing the law of diminishing marginal utility. In the previous class, I explained to you what are all the concepts, what is the meaning of cardinal and ordinal utility. Utility measured in terms of cardinal numbers is cardinal utility, and the law of diminishing marginal utility is based on cardinal utility approach. And utility based on ordinal numbers, that is first, second, third, ranking, like first preference, second preference, third preference, that is the ordinal utility approach. So we have started with the law of diminishing marginal utility, and I mentioned to you that this was introduced by H.H. Gaussen and popularized by Marshall. Basically what this law says, if a consumer keeps on consuming the same commodity again and again without any time gap, ultimately eventually the satisfaction which he is deriving is going to decline. So that is being proved in the form of a table and diagram. So I'm explaining again the table and the concepts of total and marginal utility, because this is one of the basic laws, very, very important. If you understand the concepts of this law, if you understand this law properly and the concepts of total and marginal utility clearly, all the other laws of economics, it will be easy for you to understand all the other laws of economics. So that's why I just want to make sure that you have understood this concept properly. So I'm repeating the same illustration once again. So yesterday we have seen, the previous class, we have seen the table. I'm repeating it. So we are taking just an hypothetical example. So first column represents units of commodity X. So in our example, we have taken mangoes. The second column, the total utility. And the third column, marginal utility. So how the marginal utilities arrive? Tu of n minus tu n minus 1. So the consumer is consuming one mango after another mango up to 6 mangoes. So when he keeps on consuming up to 6 mangoes, how the total satisfaction derived by the consumer keeps on changing. So first mango is getting 40 utils of utility, second 70, 90 increases to 90, still it increases to 100 at fourth mango. When he consumes the fifth mango, it is not increasing anymore. It remains at 100, and still if he continues to consume the sixth mango, his total satisfaction actually decreases. And for information, these numbers 40, 70, 90, 100 and all, they are all just imaginary numbers. You can use whatever the numbers you want. You can use 20, 40, any numbers can be used. Okay, this is just an imaginary numbers, hypothetical example, proving that if the consumer keeps on consuming the same commodity, the total satisfaction is bound to decline, and also the marginal, every unit gives him lesser and lesser amount of satisfaction. So in order to prove that, the numbers are taken only as an example. You not necessary you have to take only the same numbers. Any numbers can be taken, but it has to be proved in such a way that it keeps on decreasing. Okay, so this is the example I have taken. And marginal utility, as I mentioned yesterday in the previous class, the total utility of n commodity minus total utility of n minus 1 commodity. So the first unit, it is either you can write nil because there is no previous unit consumed, or you can mention the previous, you can take the previous unit consumed as 0. So if you write 40 minus 0, it will become 40. So the first unit, the consumer is getting 40 utils of satisfaction, and in this, like that, it keeps on going. Second unit, how we are calculating 70 minus 40. So his satisfaction is decreasing to 30. This is for the second unit. And still third unit, 90 minus 70, his satisfaction is decreasing to 20. So like that, it keeps on decreasing. 100 minus 90 is getting only 10 utils of satisfaction when he consumes the fourth mango. And when he consumes the fifth mango, automatically, since his total satisfaction reached the maximum, he is not getting any additional satisfaction. So his additional satisfaction is nil when the consumer consumes the fifth mango. And finally, if he's still consuming the sixth mango, it is giving him negative satisfaction. Okay, so this is the table I explained in the previous class. So from this, you can understand that when the consumer consumes a fifth mango, this point, what is happening here is total utility is maximum. Of course, this is also maximum, but still, since the later we always take the later one. So this is the total utility is maximum, and here the marginal utility is equal to 0. So there is no additional satisfaction. The sixth unit, the total utility itself, the total satisfaction itself is declining, and the marginal utility is becoming negative. So this is what we have found from this table. So the same thing, if you have to explain in words, so explanation of the table. So when we are explaining the table, I have to include the what is the meaning of total and marginal utility. Concepts of total utility, that is TU, and marginal utility. So there is a format in writing the answer. This is a 10 marks answer, and there is a format in writing the 10 marks answer, which I will explain to you in the at the end. Okay. So if you are explaining this table, how do you explain this table? So in this table, the first column, what it is representing? So the first column represents units of mango. So the first column represents units of good X. So in our example, we have taken mangoes. Then the second column is representing total utility. That is TU. Sorry. So second column represents total utility. So what is the meaning of total utility? So the total utility is the total satisfaction. I explained the previous class. The total utility is the total satisfaction derived by the consumer when he is getting the total satisfaction after he consumes all the units of a commodity. That means let us assume there are 6 mangoes in a basket, and all the 6 mangoes he keeps on consuming. So he completed the entire basket. So all the units in the basket, all the mangoes in a basket, after consuming, what is the total satisfaction is deriving? That is the total utility. So the total satisfaction derived by a consumer after consuming all the, again highlight this, after consuming all the units of a particular commodity. Here we have taken only one commodity. We have taken only mangoes as example, isn't it? Particular, only one commodity the consumer is consuming, and is saying that he is able to find out what is the satisfaction is deriving. So please remember, law of diminishing marginal utility deals only with one commodity. Okay. So all the units of a particular commodity. So now how it is changing, as the quantity of the mangoes changes, the total satisfaction also changes. So that means what? Total utility changes according to the quantity of the commodity. How it changes? It is increasing, but it is increasing at a decreasing rate. So if you have to write in the form of a formula, the total utility changes according to the quantity of the commodity. That means you are writing in the form of a formula. So total utility of commodity X is a function of quantity of commodity. TU is the total utility, X is the commodity, F is the function, Q of X the quantity of commodity X. So as per this table, we can find out that the total utility increases as the stock of or as the quantity of the good increases, but it increases at a decreasing rate. It increases at a decreasing rate. So this is what we are finding out, isn't it? So initially it increased 30, then additional satisfaction is 20, 10, isn't it? So the rate of increase keeps on decreasing. So that's what the second column is explaining. And moving on to the next one, the third column here represents the marginal utility. So the marginal utility, every additional unit consumed by the consumer, every additional mango consumed by the consumer, we are finding out what is the additional satisfaction the consumer is deriving. So the third column represents marginal utility, that is MU. So what is the meaning? Marginal utility is the additional satisfaction derived by a consumer, additional satisfaction derived by a consumer after consuming an additional unit of a commodity. Additional mango is consuming, what is the additional satisfaction is getting. So consume after consuming an additional unit of mango or additional unit of a commodity. So what is the relationship you are finding here? As the units keep on increasing, the marginal utility keeps on decreasing. So how we are calculating here? So the formula is marginal utility of commodity is equal to total utility of commodity N minus total utility of N minus 1. This you already know. And there is one more example. There is one more formula for marginal utility. Another formula is, you can calculate in any way. So marginal utility equal to total utility of commodity N minus total utility of N minus 1, or marginal utility is equal to delta TU divided by delta Q. So delta is change. Okay, that means what? Change in total utility divided by change in quantity. This is the another formula. So for example, you take the any formula can be applied, the result will be the same. See, for example, let us take the third mango. Okay, so what is the change in total utility here? 90 minus 70, you are getting 20. So change in the numerator is 20 here. 20 divided by change in quantity. What is the change in quantity here? 3 minus 2, 1. 20 minus divided by 1 is equal to 20. So we are getting 20. So any formula can be used. This is for the simplification. We are assuming the consumer is taking one mango after another. Suppose, for example, if I take any other commodity and not mangoes, any other commodity, initially it is 10, then it becomes 12, then later on it becomes 17. So like that, not necessary it has to change only one in every one unit, isn't it? It can be in actual practice, it can change in any way. So if it is like this, then the second formula is being used, change in total utility divided by change in quantity. Okay, so the result, the answer will be the same. So this is the marginal utility, and we have seen that the marginal utility keeps on decreasing as the quantity of the commodity keeps on decreasing. So that's what we are mentioning here. As per the table, the marginal utility keeps on decreasing. So as per the table, the marginal utility decreases with every increase in the quantity. Okay, and we are also finding out when the consumer is consuming, when the consumer consumes fifth unit. So when the consumer consumes fifth unit, fifth mango, then the total utility happens to be the maximum at 100 and the marginal utility becomes 0. There is no additional, this indicates no additional satisfaction. So there is no marginal utility when the consumer consumes the fifth mango. Okay, and still if he is consuming, what is happening here? Still when the consumer keeps on consuming the mangoes, then automatically the total satisfaction is itself is decreasing and the marginal satisfaction is becoming negative. So when the consumer consumes sixth unit, the total satisfaction itself decreases. The total satisfaction falls and the marginal utility or the additional satisfaction becomes negative. So this is what this table is explaining. Okay, so the same thing, whatever we have represented in the table, we are writing it in the sentences. Now the same thing has to be explained in the form of a diagram. The same illustration of the law are expected to exhibit in the form of a diagram also. So if you are drawing this diagram, so the next part of the uh, topic is the explaining the same law diagrammatically. Okay, so the same table, the graphical representation of the table is the diagrammatic representation. So if you are diagrammatically representing, so next heading comes to diagrammatic representation. So diagrammatic representation. So this is x-axis and y-axis. So in the x-axis, we are representing the quantity of mangoes, so or quantity of good x. And in the y-axis, we are representing utility. So utility, both the total and marginal utility are represented in the y-axis. So y-axis utility, both total utility and marginal utility. Okay, this is like how I have done in school, the graph sheet, same like that. So let us start with 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. Here you are having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And we have one more here, minus 10. Okay, so if the same thing, you have to plot it on the graph. So first unit, the consumer is getting 40 utils. So first, let us take the total utility. So first unit, the consumer is deriving 40 utils of satisfaction. So first unit 40. Second unit is getting 70. Third unit is getting 90. Fourth unit is getting 100. Fifth unit also is getting 100. And sixth unit, it is falling down to 90 again. So now you join these points. So if you join all these points, you are getting a curve. Now this is the total utility curve. Okay. Now you know that at this point, when the consumer consumes the fifth unit, this is the point of satiety, or the point of maximum satisfaction. Anything can be represented. So you can give some alphabet like A, B, C, any alphabet you can give here. But this point represents the point of satiety. Okay. So let me give the alphabet A here. Point A represents point of satiety. That is when the consumer consumes the fifth unit. Connect it with the dotted lines. So this is the point of fifth unit is getting the maximum satisfaction. So now moving on to the marginal utility. So the first unit is getting 40. Second unit is getting 30. Third unit 20. Fourth unit 10. Fifth unit 0. And sixth unit is becoming negative. So now connect all this. We are getting the marginal utility. So now this